no, no. Hey, yeah. Time to take a break, make something really great. Doesn't matter if it's new to you. Let joy and peace come shining through. Art in the word, lifting hearts and minds anew. With truth and light from the Bible and colors to speak to you. It's time to step out, let your soul sing true. Art in the word, get ready to bloom. Oh, be created for the kingdom. It's what you're made to do.
Hello everybody, story time. So I wanted to talk to you about what it means to really trust God when you are going through an unfair situation. So when I was a kid, I thought this is what it meant to turn the other cheek. So I've learned, in recently that it's not quite that cut and dried, and that you are, of course, allowed to defend yourself if somebody comes up in your face like that. But I wanted to share with you a story of something that's actually happened and the lesson that I learned from it. So I had a coworker who I thought we were sort of on the same page when it comes to faith. He was someone who used to say, "Oh, I don't know why people don't, talk more about their walk with God." And he was of the Catholic faith. I'm Protestant. And, we would talk about, why is it that it seems that it's not safe, I suppose, to talk about your love for Jesus. And there were times when I would be reading like a devotional or something, and when it was just the two of us, I would sort of share it with him. And there were a few times I even stepped up and I even said like a quick little prayer with him, and everything seemed to be cool. He seemed to be fine with that, until one day I stepped up to ask him something completely unrelated to that, and he just said no, just no, and he turned away and he walked away. And that was pretty much it for him speaking to me for the next 3 months or so. And that was very difficult for me because I'm a people pleaser. I like people to like me. I like people. I want people to like me too. And I couldn't figure out what I had done to offend him, or if there was something in my manner that he had just rubbed him the wrong way. And he wouldn't allow me to have a conversation with him to figure out what was wrong, what went wrong. And it was really hard to have to go to work every day and to see this person actually go out of their way to try to avoid me, to avoid speaking to me, to avoid having any kind of contact with me. And, I spoke to my family about it, and they were just, "Oh, what do you care? This guy thinks, But it bothered me because, I want to come to work and I want to be on a good, I want to have a good rapport with everyone that I work with. It does make for a better work environment and a more productive environment. And I just felt that every time I came to work, I would have to kind of like, steel myself for this unpleasantness. And it's hard to focus. It's hard to work when you're dealing with that. I can't imagine what it must be like for somebody. Maybe you're facing a situation where you have a difficult supervisor, somebody who actually has control or is superior to you in terms of the hierarchy of the company, and you have no power. This person has power over your work situation, and they're difficult to work with. So I really do feel for you in that situation. But what I had to learn was, when you give it to God, you literally have to give it to God. You can't try to fix the situation yourself. And I think obviously there is, there are different circumstances where maybe there is something that you're supposed to, but in my case, I was supposed to just wait, just release it. I prayed about it and just release it and not do anything. And the temptation to want to step up and say, well, I want to apologize for whatever it is I did that offended you or made you upset with me. I had to really give even that temptation over to God, because that was more about me trying to justify myself than trusting God to work it out and to just work in this person's heart and letting me find favor with them through supernatural means. And after a while, I just dealt with it. You just kind of have to pull up your big girl panties, you know? And I just dealt with it. And it was not the most comfortable situation, but you after a while, this is what you have to deal with. So you get to work and you get on with the work. And it, as I said, this continued for months without going from a pretty pleasant situation to a very unpleasant and uncomfortable situation. I learned that vengeance is mine, says the Lord, so I could not entertain having a grudge or having resentment against this person because of my discomfort. I could not find a means to justify myself. I had to let God do the work. I had to let God be God and not try to help Him solve that situation. And sorry for the little jump cut there. I had a call come through. So as I was going to say, it wasn't a miraculous resolution to that situation, in that it wasn't big fireworks and he didn't just suddenly come in one day and we're all just having a big discussion about it, and we didn't talk about it or the situation. He didn't explain why he behaved the way that he behaved, and I just realized that I had somehow infringed on his space. And even though I thought he was okay with the little moments that we shared, that perhaps he felt uncomfortable with them, but he didn't know how to tell me. So I learned a lesson there as well, in just that sometimes you just have to keep things separate. So there's a place and a time for everything, and sometimes the Lord allows you to have a moment in a work situation. But most times work should just probably be about work. And there's some discussions, that are maybe inappropriate for the workplace. So I learned that. One day he suddenly dropped a comment to me about something mundane, could have been the weather. And I just responded and kind of like, yeah, it is getting kind of chilly. And that was it. The next time he saw me, he said hello, and I said hello back. And then within a few weeks, we were having, just the usual work chit-chat conversations. And by the time he moved on to another location, another position, we were having pretty decent conversations. They were just polite, as I said, sort of work, social conversations. It wasn't anything deep or heavy. He never explained why he suddenly had that attitude with me, and I never got a chance to apologize for whatever it was that upset him. And to this day, I'm not quite sure what that situation was about, but that's okay. That's not what's important. What is important is the lessons that I learned through that period of waiting on God to fix it. I had to wait on God to fix it. I couldn't fix it myself because He wouldn't allow me to. And I just had to trust. I just had to lay it at the altar, and I just had to trust that God was going to work it out somehow. And I realized that that's not everybody's experience, and that there are some situations where the other person simply will not come around. They just maybe they pass on before you get a chance to resolve whatever conflict that you have with them. But the important thing is to make sure that your heart is right before God, that you're not holding a grudge or resentment against that person. That's a lot easier said than done. But, and trust God to help you keep your peace, even when it seems unfair and what's happening to you is unfair. There's some situations where you're allowed to speak out, and some where you have to just trust God to take care of it. So That's our story for today. I hope that it has spoken to you in your situation. And thank you so much for joining me here on Art and the Word. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, be creative for the kingdom.